What is up, everybody? BK Voiceover here, and welcome to another video. Today is Friday. I'm trying to make it a regular thing that on Friday evenings I put out a Seahawks newsreel for just some of the highlights over the past week or so and just see what's changed. I want to make this a regular thing. Unfortunately, next Friday I'm not going to be able to do it. Because I'm going to be out of town for something, so unfortunately you won't get a report next week. I also won't be able to do a stream or a follow-along stream of the Seahawks first preseason game, but I will do my reaction to that once I get back. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Just a quick update. As far as roster moves go, not a whole lot of moves. Going into last week, we had one open spot on the roster that got filled this week by defensive tackle Antonio Valentino. He's a UDFA out of Florida, adding to that defensive tackle depth. Just provide some depth for that position during the offseason. Don't expect him to make the roster, but an interesting signing. He had a workout with the Seahawks and was signed afterwards. Also activating Tyriq Smith from the PUP list. He is the first of the 4 players that were originally put on the PUP list at the start of the offseason. Those being, again, Tyriq Smith, Trey Brown, John Radigan, Liam Ryan. I would expect Trey Brown to be off that list here relatively soon, hopefully in time for the mock game tomorrow at Lumen Field. That would be pretty cool. As far as John Radigan and Liam Ryan go, they are going to be on there for a bit longer, as they're still recovering from injury. The other two roster moves that happened in the past week, the Seattle Seahawks, after trying him out, went and signed Cincinnati Bearcats co-captain of their playoff team at the end of last season, and Cody Barton's teammate, linebacker Joel Dublanco. So signed him to a UDFA deal. Probably trying to build the depth on that inside linebacker room, with the waiving of linebacker Ben Burke-Kirben. So again, decent signing. I don't think he makes the roster, the 53-man roster, but I think he could definitely make a case for making the 53-man roster. We'll have to wait and see. Again, don't know a whole lot more about stuff in that regard. But once we actually get into preseason, we actually get to see these guys playing in full pads against actual competition, even if it is second and third stringers. I think we'll get a much clearer picture of who are your favorites to make the roster. So with it being a week since the 29th, when I did my last news video, we've had a whole week of training camp. Whole week of training camp, and have quite a bit to go over. A couple big things, as I'm sure you all probably heard. Jamal Adams broke his finger on somebody's helmet, so he is elected not to get surgery on that finger. Luckily, it should heal, and he should be 100% ready to go by the start of the season. But again, not ideal. A guy who's had so many hand injuries and already had 2 fingers fused. Because of previous injuries, having another hand injury is not ideal. I know it was a freak accident. I know it's not related to his previous injuries, but my God, that still sucks. As far as training camp goes, we'll kind of go down the list and take a look at some of the guys and kind of give my quick opinions on how they've been doing. Joel Dublanco, again, just signed him, not really a whole lot. D. Eskridge has been dealing with a hamstring issue, so he hasn't really done a whole lot, if anything, on the field, which sucks because he already missed a large part of training camp last season and a good chunk of the regular season in his rookie year. So the fact that he's not seen the field a whole lot because of that soft tissue issue doesn't really sit well with me. In the past when Doug Baldwin and Sherm and those other guys from that Super Bowl team had those soft tissue injuries, they worked through it. And they pushed through. And the fact that D is just taking it very safe, I mean, maybe it's a good thing, but it's kind of sucky. The QB competition with Gino and Drew has been so uninteresting, to be perfectly honest with you. They've pretty much been what I think we've all thought. They're mediocre to bad. The defense has been locking them down almost every day. making big plays on them. They've had their bright spots, but again, they are who we thought they were. Dixon, Myers, not a big thing. Diggs, I'm super happy that he's back and rolling at 100%. Looks healthy, looks perfectly ready to go, and I'm super happy about that. Rookie Cody Bryant, he has done nothing but excite everybody with his play during training camp. I can't wait to see how he does during the preseason. Because right now with Trey Brown's injury, he's pushing for a starting spot this season, and I think he could easily get it. Ken Walker, he wasn't really known as a pass catching back in Michigan State, but it seems like Seattle is really starting to use him more to that effect, and I think Kenneth Walker is going to be have the biggest impact of any player on the Seahawks right now. Chinna Nwosu making a bunch of plays, both rushing the passer and in coverage. He's a great coverage outside linebacker. Had an interception against Geno Smith as well. Thompson's been good. I haven't heard anything about Fuller. DK. DK's been DK. He's kind of been a victim of poor QB play and just some great defensive plays. So hasn't been huge, but again, he'll be fine. Marquis Goodwin, definitely making his case to make the 53-man roster. I think he definitely does at this point. Yeah, I think he's fast. I think if they keep 6 wide receivers on the team, I think Marquis Goodwin's probably going to make it. Lockett, nothing to say. He's been great. Eason, he's a practice squatter at best. Nothing really to report there. I've heard literally nothing about Swain. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe not. I don't know. Penny Hart has been fine. Penny's been apparently in the best shape of his life, but apparently everybody says that. Artie Burns has actually been a very pleasant surprise. He's been getting the vast majority of the first team outside corner snaps opposite Sidney Jones, who's also been playing great. Excited. If this is the starters at the start of the season, I wouldn't be mad. I'm hoping to see Cody Bryant take one of those starting roles, but I think Artie Burns is making a big case for making the 53-man. Coleman's been good. Homer's been fine. Blair has been fully healthy for all of camp, which is like unheard of. But he's making a play. He'll back up safety and also backing up the slot corner role behind Coleman. Ugo missed a bit of time. I think he had a family emergency and had to be absent for a couple of days. But he's back now, so we should be hopefully seeing a lot more of him during training camp and preseason. But again, his roster spot's kind of up in the air at this point. Yeah, John Reed, Mike Jackson, haven't heard much about them. DJ Dallas, haven't heard much either. Jamal Adams, he's been full of practice. He's just been wearing a cast on his hand. So hopefully he's good to go by the start of the season. Johnson, Blunt, Bolden, Darwin, Elijah Jones, Josh Valentine Turner, haven't heard much of anything from those guys. Tyriq Woolen has done nothing but impress everybody. Today when Sidney Jones, I think apparently he got a concussion the other day at practice, so he was sitting out today. And Tyriq Woolen took over his spot as one of the starting outside corners, and he really impressed. He has that wingspan and that athleticism that Pete drools over. So, he's going to give him every opportunity to show what he's got on the field. Not much from Deontay Williams, Scott Nelson. Josh Jones apparently has been making a ton of plays. He was good in his limited games with Seattle last year. I think if he doesn't make the 53-man, I think he's a lock to make the practice squad. Don Core, haven't heard anything. Belor, Williams, Brewer, Onujogu, Vi Jones, Iggy, I haven't heard anything. Not really a whole lot about them. Darrell Taylor and Boye Mafe. Darrell Taylor's been tearing it up on the edge. Boye Mafe has been quiet for the first week of camp, but he's really started to turn it on. They're using him not as an every down linebacker, but more as a specialized situational pass rusher, and apparently that's the role that best fits him, where he can just tie his hair back and just go. And honestly, that's great. Jordan Brooks, he's doing great as the QB of this defense since the start of training camp. But I think he had an injury, so he has sat out for a couple of practices. So hopefully he's all set to go from the start of the season. In the meantime, Cody Barton has done a pretty decent job in his stead in that starting inside linebacker role, making a lot of plays on the ball. He's good in run defense, and his safety background is also popping up because he's making a lot of plays in coverage as well. Muse, haven't heard anything really about him. Radigan has been on PUP, so he hasn't done anything. Haynes has been getting a lot of starts at guard, like Gabe Jackson and Damian Lewis had a a vet rest day the other day. Phil Haynes took over to start at left guard, and he was really good. I don't think the question has ever been about Phil Haynes' ability. It's always been about his health. And I really wish we didn't have to pay Gabe Jackson $9 million this year. And we're stuck with a $3 million dead cap hit if we cut him, because I think Phil Haynes deserves to start over Gabe Jackson every day. So I really hope he sees the field a lot. Hope pushing for Gabe Jackson, hopefully do better, but he hasn't shown me anything. Forbes, he was another UDFA guard that we signed out of Florida A&M. Or he wasn't a UDFA. He's been floating around a couple of practice squads since he was drafted, it was a UDFA a year ago. Just depth for training camp. I don't think he makes the roster. Hewitt, have heard nothing. Blythe has been fine. Shepley, I haven't heard anything about, but my goodness, he's put on like 25 pounds. So that's huge. That's going to be really great. Nothing about Gilmore, nothing about Gabe. I have heard, though, that the starting offensive linemen, they fall starting a lot, which I get. You have a really, 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 really young offensive line. You have 2 rookies right now that are probably going to be starting, with one third-year player. So your offensive line right now is very, very, very young. Like, the most experienced tackle that you have on your team right now, offensive tackle, has played a grand total of 5 games. So, yeah, lots to deal with there. Charles Cross has been what you expect from a first-round pick, 9th overall pick, offensive tackle. He's had a couple of false starts. Has gotten a little bit worked by a couple of speed rushes, but again, he's a rookie. I don't know what else you'd expect. Lucas has been, after taking over like most of the first team snaps at the end of OTAs and mandatory minicamp, up until today, Abe Lucas has kind of just disappeared. Like, he had not gotten a single starting snap since the start of training camp at right tackle until today. I definitely think it's still very much an open competition between him, Jake Curran, and Stone Forsyth. But we'll kind of see. I think once we get into the mock game and see more of the preseason games, I think we'll get a much better idea of who is going to be taking over that starting right tackle spot. Gotel, I've heard very little about him other than he's big. Greg Island has been getting a lot of snaps as the second string left tackle, which is kind of interesting. I would have expected that to be Stone Forsyth, but apparently Forsyth has been getting more stuff at right tackle. Valentino, we just signed him, haven't heard much about him. Same with Q-Jeff. Stone Forsyth, again, getting a lot of snaps at right tackle. Eric Wilson, nothing about him. Beau Melton has been, I don't know, he's been more, I know he's a 7th round pick, but I projected him as like a 4th or 5th rounder. He's kind of been underwhelming in training camp so far. I was hoping that we would see him more on like I don't know, like punt returns, kick returns, but it looks like he's not even on the depth chart for any of that as it stands right now. It's like DJ Dallas, Freddie Swain, Cassis, and someone else. But yeah, moving on. Tyriq Young getting a lot of praise from Drew Lock and a lot of other people. Just all around great receiver. Deontay Alexander, nothing about him. Colby Parkinson, he's been doing fine in training camp, nothing special. Mabry's actually been showing off his chops more as like a pass catching tight end, which was definitely not his thing for the first 2 seasons he's been in the league. Cassis, nothing about him. Fant looks great. Disley looks great. K. Johnson, haven't seen him do anything. Monet, haven't heard anything about him. Collier is apparently in the best shape of his life as well. He's impressing Clint Hurd a lot. Tyriq Smith got off the PUP list finally, and he has been raking, like doing amazing, like since coming back from PUP. Harris is great locker room presence. Ford's good. Robinson is getting some pass rush and snaps, but haven't really seen a whole lot from him. Al Woods, haven't seen a whole lot from him. So that's kind of my quick breakdown of training camp and kind of how that's going. So again, I'm doing more of a short news video today because I'm heading out early tomorrow. But again, really appreciate you guys sticking around for as long as you have. If you like the video and want to see me do more of these news shows, I'm trying to make them more consistent, do them on Friday evenings. Again, please let me know. I am more than happy to meet those desires if you'd like. But aside from that, also be sure to drop us if you're interested in the content, you like the content, you want to see more. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and also drop a hit the bell icon if you want to be notified next time I post. So next time I post, it'll probably be I'll probably be posting not next Monday, Monday the Monday the 15th is probably the next time that I'm going to post. So be on the lookout. I'll be giving my reaction to the rest of training camp, to the first preseason game, and to the cuts that eventually come from that preseason game. Because following their first preseason game, they need to trim their roster from 90 down to 85, or in our case where we have a player who is part of the International Player Pathway Program and doesn't count towards the 90-man roster, we go from 91 down to 86. So we'll go over the cuts there, or who, if the cuts haven't been announced, who I think is going to be cut, and we'll go from there. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, go Hawks.